the most hyped group in the UFC, the Fighting Nerds, have all taken their first loss in the UFC as of late, starting with Carlos Prates, now most recently Jean Silva last night against Diego Lopez. They've all taken a loss now, and the question remains now, where do they stand? What do they do next? Who are they going to face? Do they still have a potential to become top of their division, become a champion? We're going to get into all of that today. Before we go ahead and get into it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's get into all the details about the Fighting Nerds. So the Fighting Nerds started off the year very hot. 2025, Mauricio Rufy landed that spinning wheel kick KO over King Green at UFC 313, and that kind of just put a stamp on, wow, the Fighting Nerds are incredible. They're insane. They got plot armor. It just seemed like everybody was like, these guys got plot armor. They're undeniable. They're unstoppable. And it just seemed like Rufy was going to be next at cracking that top 15, getting his shot at the top 15 after that brutal KO over King Green. You know, little did we know that's a almost 40-year-old Bobby Green who has his hands down and zero chin. Anyways, that's besides the point. Mauricio Rufy had a flash, KO of the year type KO over Bobby Green with that spinning wheel kick, and it just set the standard for the Fighting Nerds where everybody, and I mean everybody, do not pretend like you're a hardcore and you knew that the Fighting Nerds downfall was coming. Do not pretend. Nobody could have called this downfall, this absolute drought that the Fighting Nerds are in now throughout the past couple weeks and throughout the past few months, starting with the downfall. But Mauricio Rufy had that KO over Bobby Green, carried the momentum into 2025 for the Fighting Nerds, and then we saw Jean Silva get that submission over Bryce Mitchell one pay-per-view later at UFC 314, got that submission over Bryce Mitchell, just completely dog-walked Bryce Mitchell and made it look easy. He cracked the rankings and got himself into the top 10 against Bryce Mitchell, getting that submission. I think it was the second round. Really nice ninja choke. He was just styling on Bryce the whole time. Styling on him. And little did we know that Jean Silva does his little hand touch and his little laugh and his little giggle to reset his game plan and reset the fight in general. But Bryce Mitchell did decent in that fight. Still got finished. They carried the momentum with the Rufy KO, the Jean Silva submission, and then we were going into what was Carlos Prates' short notice Kansas City main event against Ian Machado Gary. Who could have seen the Fighting Nerds downfall start with Ian Machado Gary? Who could have called that one? Nobody could have called that one. Some people did pick Ian Gary, but I will be honest, I picked Carlos Prates based off of the Fighting Nerds plot armor. The Fighting Nerds had so much plot armor, so much aura. Nobody can pretend like they didn't. These guys were pulling up everywhere, every single interview, every single, recording all these YouTube videos. They were teaming up with Full Violence, massive Full Violence drops, all this shit, doing all this promotion. Just the biggest team in 2024, built up their credibility, and then 2025 they started to take over. And then we saw the first main event. No, I don't think this was the first main event, actually. It was Kyle Baralho against Cannonier, I'm pretty sure. But we had Prates in the first live main event in front of a fight night crowd, a live crowd in Kansas City, and he showed up on short notice fighting Ian Gary. But he did fall short against Ian Gary, and Ian Gary just beat him everywhere. He beat him for 5 rounds, just piecing him up with a jab, a straight right, keeping his distance, using his karate stance, just playing it very boring against Carlos Prates. But Prates could not close the distance. He couldn't get his Muay Thai off. He couldn't throw strikes. He was very hesitant at moments, and he didn't have the right game plan. Surprisingly, as a cigarette Marlboro smoker in Carlos Prates, he did very well in round 4 and round 5, the championship rounds, but it was too late, too late against Ian Gary, and he lost by unanimous decision. The first loss and the first hit that the Fighting Nerds took. The first hit they took, and it didn't seem like too much of a devastating one, because for some reason, as an MMA community, as a UFC fan base, we were like, oh yeah, Carlos Prates was about to win that fight. He was about to knock out Ian Gary. I have rewatched that fight 2 or 3 times now. It was not that close to being over. We convinced ourselves that Prates was this close to finishing that fight. Ian Gary was fully conscious. He was fully moving. He looked like a worm on the ground. He looked like a worm trying to get back into the ground and bury his hole out of the octagon. But it wasn't that close to being over. It wasn't. It really wasn't. We tricked ourselves. We mind boggled ourselves as UFC fans to thinking, oh man, Carlos Prates, he basically had him out of there. He would have won that if there was like another round, another like 5 minutes or whatever, or a couple seconds or whatever it was at the end of the round. We just convinced ourselves that that's why he lost. That is not why he lost. All right. It was too much, too soon, short notice. It was too much. It was too much, and that's been the case with the fighting nerds. It's been too much too soon. These guys are being pushed. They're being pushed and pushed and pushed, and I get it. The UFC wants to build them up. We all get it. But these past couple of weeks have been very, very rough for the fighting nerds, fans. The entirety of their gym has taken a massive gut shot, and it's going to be very difficult for them to bounce back. But this was the whole beginning of the effect of it, and this didn't seem like too much of a hit. I'm going to be honest. What was really the biggest hit out of the fighting nerds losing? Prates lost by decision, very close decision. He arguably won round 4, round 5. It was close, and he almost finished that fight. So we convinced ourselves, wow, that was a close fight. Prates will be back. That was short notice, tough opponent. Really, really close fight, right? That's what we thought. But then we go to Paris last weekend. We go to Paris, fighting nerds versus France in the co-main and the main event. Where is it? Mauricio Rufy versus Benoit Saint Denis. A lot of people calling him Benoit Scam Denis. Man, a lot of hate coming out towards BSD in this fight. Everybody picked Mauricio Rufy, including myself. Everybody. You cannot pretend like you were on BSD side. Unless you're Lucas Tracy, you were not on BSD side, all right? Nobody was. Mauricio Rufy goes out there, shits the bed. Benoit Saint Denis puts on a performance of a lifetime, just dominates, has the perfect game plan. Nicolas Ott planned everything perfectly. They take down Mauricio Rufy. They grapple him. They body kick him. They head kick him. And I'm saying they because Nicolas Ott planned this out perfectly. I just watched the video of Benoit Saint Denis' training camp and release footage and stuff, and the training that Nicolas Ott had Benoit doing, and the game planning was perfect. Okay? Mauricio Rufy had nothing for BSD. Absolutely nothing. He was a pretty decent favorite coming into this fight in France, and he gets submitted in the second round by rear naked choke. He taps. Right there and then is when the fighting nerds aura got demolished. It wasn't when Carlos Prates lost by decision. It wasn't when Kyle Braujo lost. It's when Mauricio Rufy lost and tapped to that submission of Benoit Saint Denis. It was just that moment of accepting defeat and, saying, I can't take it anymore kind of thing. And the second Mauricio Rufy lost, I knew Kyle Braujo would lose. There is no way these guys who have been trained together, all together on the come up, all together, all their momentum, all their brotherhood, you knew that when Mauricio Rufy lost to Benoit Saint Denis, you knew Kyle would take an effect to that. If you haven't seen yet, you got to go check out his octagon or him watching Mauricio Rufy tap. You could just see it. He was morally broken. And I understand, but this was the biggest moment and the biggest crushing factor for the fighting nerds. I think this is the complete definition of breaking their cycle and breaking all their momentum was right when Rufy tapped. And I don't blame him because it was a tight rear naked choke from Benoit Saint Denis, a tight face crank. But when he tapped, Kyle lost. He had nothing. He had a close fight with Imavov, but he didn't have that factor, and he didn't have that mentality going in that, oh, my partner just won, or not my partner, but my training partner just won, my close friend, my gym member just won. Like, he didn't have that. He had in the back of his mind that Mauricio Rufy just tapped, I need to defend or try to get back for my camp, for my team, for my friend, it was all that. And then Kyle loses. We've got Rufy and Kyle both lose. And then this past weekend, we have Gene Silva face against Diego Lopez, and Gene Silva's a massive favorite, still expected to win. I picked Gene Silva, but I made a video that this fight would be very competitive. Everybody was picking Gene Silva, and everybody seemed to have him as a lock. I said this fight would be competitive. I said this fight was a 50-50. I said this was going to be a scrap, and it depended who had more dog in him. And it just seemed to be that Diego Lopez had more dog in him last night. He had more dog in him. He brought it out. This was a good fight. This was a scrap. But Gene Silva got emotional. He got irrational. He didn't listen to his corner. He didn't listen to his coaches. He got emotional. He let the effects of his two friends last weekend losing, Rufy and Kaio, both losing, get to him. He let his emotions come out. He rushed into the fire and he got caught. I said he could get caught. He did get caught because of his emotions. You can't be in the octagon fighting with emotion and fighting off emotion. You just can't. And that's what John Silva did. And he got caught and he got put out. And that is the nail in the coffin of the Fighting Nerds. I don't think the Fighting Nerds are over. But as a team, they need to rebuild. They need to rethink things. They need to take more time off. Stop rushing into fights. Stop building these big fights and fighting up in the rankings like crazy. Freaking Carlos Prates is fighting Edwards soon. He's fighting Leon Edwards, former champion Leon Edwards soon. Is this too big of a step? I think it is. We've seen this now. Everybody is just, and it's not just, you guys. It's me too. Everybody gets caught up in the idea that these guys are unstoppable. Their plot armor is insane. The plot armor was crazy. It was crazy before these last couple weeks. Now it's just like, they're just guys. They can be beat. And they have been beat. Their holes have been shown. What's next for the Fighting Nerds? That's a real question. What is next? We've got Carlos Prates facing Leon Edwards. I think now I'm a little bit worried. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit worried. We've seen Prates lose, though, and come back. He just had that nasty win over Jeff Neal, but that was lower competition. But I am definitely ready to see what Carlos Prates brings in this fight against Leon Edwards. It's going to be close. I don't know who I'm picking, but I think it might be a little bit too soon for Carlos Prates as well. In a striking matchup against Edwards, where Edwards has been fighting grapplers in his last two fights, he's fighting a striker now. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting, but this might be too much. It might be too much as well. Like these guys have been pushed. They've been pushed. Baralho was pushed. He fought two good ranked opponents. Not even good. Okay, now I'm not going to say not good, but he fought Paul Craig and he fought 40-year-old Jared Cannonier. I said this in the lead up. Too much. Imavov is too much too soon. We've said this too much too soon. Same thing. John Silva's best win was Bryce Mitchell. Too much too soon to fight Lopez. Too much too soon. Rufy's best win was a chinny Bobby Green. Too much too soon. Too much too soon for all of them. It's a repetitive factor. I think they all need a reset. I think they all need to take a lot of time off, besides obviously Carlos Prates, but they all need to take a lot of time off. They need to reset. They need to recalibrate, and they need to look at their mistakes and fix their mistakes. I think Mauricio Rufy should fight somebody outside the rankings. I think Gene Silva should fight somebody in the bottom of the top 15. I think Kyle Baralho should fight maybe a Whitaker or maybe, a Brendan Allen. There's talks about Brendan Allen, Kyle. I think these guys need to fight down in the rankings. They need something like, Carlos Prates had. Prates versus Neal. That was the perfect matchup to make. It was the initial matchup. And that's what kind of worked. They need to slowly pace themselves up the rankings. The boost to the rankings was too much too soon. We now know that. I still have hope for the Fighting Nerds. I'm not going to count them out. I'm not going to hate on them. But it was too much too soon. They branded themselves very well. Coming into the UFC, they branded themselves very well. They all showed up at all their events together, all getting on interviews, getting on podcasts, get all these things. They're doing very great work with the marketing and the branding, but it's too much too soon for these guys, and I think they should all take a step back, like Carlos Prates did. Take a step back and then slowly rebuild themselves. Anyways, I think the Fighting Nerds have learned their lesson. They needed to get knocked down a peg because Mauricio Rufy was talking all sorts of shit about Ilia Topuria. Gene Silva was talking about running through Diego Lopez and barking at him and all sorts of stuff, just talking like it was easy to beat Diego Lopez. And Kyle Baralho was pretending like Imavov was not a number one contender and the guy that's next. And he made a terrible mistake by cutting weight 3 weeks before his official fight and being the backup fighter for 319. So they've all made their mistakes. They were all in the wrong at some point, and I think they will all make the adjustments and come back. But I don't think they're cooked, but I don't think we can call them all championship material anymore or championship level anymore. We're gonna have to see how it plays out, but they all need a bounce back fight like Carlos Prates had against Jeff Neal. But I think they can make a bounce back. They can have a future in the UFC where they do get wins, but it needs to slowly incline rather than jumping up 8, 10 rankings, something crazy like that. Like Jean Silva just did. He went number 10 against number 2. That's a big jump, man. It's a big jump. There's rankings for a reason. But that's the entire video, guys. That's everything I have to say about the Fighting Nerds. And way longer than I thought it was going to be. I just started unleashing, man. I had to talk about the Fighting Nerds because I made a video a while back talking about the ceiling of the Fighting Nerds. Are they championship material? And I said that they were. And I'm not going to take that back. I'm not going to pretend like they can't be. But they definitely need to slow it down. They have time. They're all pretty young. They have time. They have time. Time is on their side. They have a good team still. They have a great coach. They need to listen to their coach, and they need to slow it down. I think they can all still become champions if they slow down their career and take the right steps necessary. We'll see what happens. But if you guys did enjoy the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, drop it down in the comments what you guys think about the recent downfall of the Fighting Nerds. Do you think they'll bounce back? But without further ado, I will catch you guys in the next one. See you.